October 20th, 2018. The Milwaukee Brewers are miraculously one win away from going to the World Series. This is a franchise with a great fan base and a fantastic team on the field, but very little to show for it over the 50 seasons of team existence. But this is very, very new territory for this team. Let's rewind. Real quick, I do have to do the standard YouTube thing of politely asking you to consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy what you see here today. That stuff really does mean a lot. We promise it's not just for show. The Brewers were an organization that had just 5 postseason appearances in 49 seasons coming into 2018. At one point going 26 years in between trips to the playoffs. That's longer than Yordan Alvarez has been alive right now. A 6th postseason trip almost happened in 2017, when the Brewers, completely unexpectedly, finished the season just 1 game shy of going to the NL wildcard game. They were knocked out of contention on the second to last day of the season, but still, the Brewers were a squad that had to take 2017 as a net positive, especially with a team without a true superstar. So they immediately went to work on bringing in that star talent. The Brewers used the time between 2017 and 2018 to bring in 2 huge additions to their lineup, both outfielders. Both reports came out on the same day too, which is kind of wild in hindsight. One was via free agency. The Brewers brought back former homegrown prospect Lorenzo Cain on a 5-year, $80 million contract. Cain finished 3rd in American League MVP voting just 3 seasons ago at the time of the signing, so he was expected to be a big piece of the Brewers for the next couple years. Crazy expectations and evolution for a kid who first tried out for high school baseball as a sophomore without ever watching baseball before. The other big addition was via trade. They made a deal with the Miami Marlins to bring in up-and-coming outfielder Christian Yelich, who at the time was best known for kind of looking like Pete Davidson. They really tried to push that narrative. And let me jump ahead a little bit to tell you, they delivered. Cain finished 2018 with the 2nd highest wins above replacement among National League position players. Wins above replacement is pretty much just a stat that tries to measure a player's overall value to their team by estimating how many more wins a player would help their team generate than a replacement level player at the same position. The only NL position player more valuable to winning in 2018 than Cain was Yelich.
Yelich launches right field,
who had an insane breakout year by all measurements and coasted off a torrent end to the season to win the National League Most Valuable Player award. Cain and Yelich absolutely made a huge difference for the Brewers here, and were the most fun and productive members of the squad. So the story of the team does very easily start with them, if you haven't noticed. But there still needed to be a fun supporting cast for Cain and Yelich for this team to be enjoyable, successful, or memorable. And this team was all 3 of those things. The next best player by wins above replacement was power-hitting 3rd baseman Travis Shaw. That is some swing, huh? 32 home runs, 86 runs batted in, 4.5 wins above replacement, and a final hitting line roughly 19% above league average. Jesus Aguilar had more home runs, more runs batted in, and was about 35% above league average, manning first base as well. Wait, did you see that? That was not the only time Marcell Ozuna would unnecessarily climb a wall trying to chase down a fly ball in his career.
Oh my God, how did he get out of there?
And this team still also got 20 home runs and an above-average OPS plus from Ryan Braun in his 12th big league season. Couple that with fun-loving little role players who popped in throughout the year like Brett Phillips, Curtis Granderson, and G-Man Choi, and Milwaukee had themselves a really cool cast of characters that popped in to contribute over the course of the season. But the real engine that kept this team going was in its pitching. Not the starting pitching, though. The rotation saw most of the innings go to slightly above average seasons from Jhoulys Chacín and Chase Anderson. Not one overpowering all-star type starter on the team. All those power arms were in the bullpen. The 3-headed monster of Corey Knebel, Jeremy Jeffress, and Josh Hader carved through lineups like butter. The 5 pitchers who made the most starts for the 2018 Brewers averaged about 7.28 strikeouts for every 9 innings pitched. In the 213 1/3 innings the 3 power relievers gave them, they averaged 13.5 strikeouts per 9. Knebel was the established closer, Jeffress was the best run preventer, and Hader was basically like if you stuck prime Randy Johnson in a bullpen role. He even had the Randy Johnson hair to go with it. Fun fact, you want to know the other Brewers reliever who finished third on the team in ERA, counting guys with at least 35 innings on the season? Corbin Burns. Yes, this is Corbin Burns in 2018. He was in that phase of his career where he was basically the inverse of Jacob deGrom, at least in terms of pure appearance transformation. What that bullpen did was do a great job of preserving leads and keeping the team in the game. One place this showed was helping the Brewers get to 10 walk-off wins on the season. More than 10% of the Brewers' wins in the regular season were on walk-offs. This is an unusually high amount. The bullpen certainly contributed to this, keeping the team in the games late. But as you could imagine, this also meant that the offense was clutch and consistent. Consistent is the word I would use to describe the regular season for the Brewers. They were 12 games over 500 in the first half of the season, 17 games over in the second, 21 games over 500 at home, 18 on the road. Over 500 in every month of the season except June, where they were just one game under. This was a team that never really left the hunt, despite fighting in the trenches with a favorite to win the National League all season. The Chicago Cubs had been to the National League Championship Series or better in each of the last 3 seasons. They returned a solid core group, still viewed to be a serious contender. Sharing a division with the Brewers, the two were constantly doing battle for first place all season. And in the very last series of the year, the Brewers rode an 8-game win streak and blazing hot September to finish a tie with the Cubs, after not holding first place in 2 months. By the way, Yelich had a September where he OPS'd over 1,300, all but locking up that MVP award I already kinda spoiled that he got. This set up a tiebreaker game in Chicago to decide the NL Central. The Brewers took a 1-0 lead in the third inning on a base hit by Yelich, who seemed basically impossible to get out at this time. This held until the bottom of the fifth when Tony Soprano, Anthony Rizzo, knocked a game-tying home run to even it at 1. This was a tight, gritty game where neither team could really get anything going. That is, until the Brewers started to stack some hits together in the 8th inning, building a 2-run cushion to bring Josh Hader in for a 6-out save to officially send the Brewers to the NLDS. And Josh Hader stuffed the Cubs. Bottom 9, he kept it going. Javier Baez is now the last hope for the Cubs. 1 strike away. Oh no.
Right field, playable.
The Brewers had done it. Officially, able to breathe a sigh of relief and celebrate in the playoffs. The Cubs, meanwhile, would lose an extra inning heartbreaker to the Colorado Rockies the next night in the NL wildcard game, ending their season. That could very well have been the Brewers if not for a couple great pitches, solid swings, and a few inches going their way. The win by the Rockies set up a Colorado versus Milwaukee first-round series for the Brewers. And when I say Christian Yelich picked up right where he left off.
First pitch, deep center field, Blackman looks up, it is gone!
This was the scoring for the entire first game until the Rockies put together a huge 9th inning rally off Jeremy Jeffress to tie the game. It's fine though. Mike Moustakas came up with a clutch 2-out, 2-strike walk-off hit in the bottom of the 10th to take game 1. The vibes were up in Milwaukee. And oh, would you look at that, the Brewers pitching is stuffing the Rockies again in game 2. Can Jeffress hold the lead in the 9th this time to give the Brewers a 2-0 lead in a best-of-5 series?
Ground ball to the second baseman, Perez. The Brewers take a 2-0 lead in the National League Division Series.
Game 3 in Colorado. A win sends the Brewers to the NLCS. They jump out to a quick 1-0 lead in the first. Then Jesus Aguilar homers. Then we get a balk and a wild pitch in the same at-bat to score 2 runs. Then Orlando Arcia homers. Then Keon Broxton homers 1 batter later. It is 6-0 in the top of the 9th inning. Wait, the Brewers held the Rockies scoreless again? The Brewers win the series a few minutes later. A 3-game sweep. They played 3 games and allowed 2 runs. They played 28 innings of baseball and allowed scoring in 1 of them. That is just absolute domination. It's like me playing any online multiplayer video game. I'm the Rockies in that analogy. And might I add, they had the 3rd shutout win in a stadium that is impossible to pitch in. Definitely go check out that video of ours when you're done here. We then move into the NLCS, 1 round short of the World Series. World Series territory is something the Milwaukee Brewers haven't entered since 1982. People do not usually connect the Brewers and the World Series. They're just things that typically don't go together. It's like when Ben Shapiro went on the Full Send podcast and talked about the Lou Brock trade.
It's not like Ernie Broglio for Lou Brock.
Start of the day talking about oh yeah.
Their opponents in this series would be the Los Angeles Dodgers, whose last World Series appearance was just 1 year before this. The Brewers and the Dodgers were kind of conducting a social experiment to commentate on capitalism. The Dodgers had the 2nd highest payroll in the National League. The Brewers had the 2nd lowest. They would be the ones doing battle for a trip to the World Series.
The Dodgers haven't won a World Series in years since Curtin Gibson, right?
But what Milwaukee had was home field advantage. Game 1. The Dodgers are starting the best pitcher of his generation, future Hall of Famer Clayton Kershaw. The Brewers are gonna try to piece together 9 innings out of a ton of different pitchers, which is very unorthodox, but you haven't seen the half of the stunts the Brewers are gonna try to pull to outsmart the Dodgers here. It initially looks to backfire on Milwaukee here, as Manny Machado hits a rocket over the left field wall to give the Dodgers a 1-0 lead to start the 2nd inning. But here's where we introduce you to the 2nd Brewers pitcher of the evening. Future Brewers ace in just his 2nd season, Brandon Woodruff. Woodruff is a young, relatively inexperienced pitcher at this time. He has as many career MLB games played to this point as Kershaw had in 2018 alone. A wild contrast of pitchers here. So I don't think Woodruff expected anything when he stepped into the box to face Kershaw for his first at-bat of the night in the bottom of the 3rd inning, because you know this was before Universal DH. Or maybe he did expect something. This home run kicked off a rally that gave the Brewers the lead, something they'd gradually build on throughout the rest of the game, even when the Dodgers threatened late and actually sent the go-ahead run to the plate with 2 outs in the 9th inning. The bullpen held on and secured a much-needed Game 1 win, 3 wins away from a trip to the World Series. Game 2 kinda sucked. Well, I mean for the Brewers. For the Dodgers, it was kind of an awesome win. With a 2-0 lead late, the cracks that had been starting to form for Jeremy Jeffress burst, coming to a head with a go-ahead home run in the 8th inning by Justin Turner. And then the Brewers had the exact situation they'd want. Christian Yelich up to the plate with a chance to win the game on 1 swing.
1-2. Shattered back. Turner. Dodgers win.
And this is why the moments where someone actually comes through in big spots late in the game truly mean so much. Because they usually go like this. Game 3 was the Brewers getting a prototypical 2018 Brewers style win. Great pitching, steady hitting, a key multi-run homer, and my goodness, the bullpen. They shut the Dodgers out, but they got 3 2/3 of impeccable bullpen behind a solid start from Jhoulys Chacín. Brewers pitchers had 14 strikeouts to just 3 walks in the 9 innings of play. The Brewers staff just completely shut down the Dodger lineup, keeping them off the scoreboard for the whole game, and not even really giving them an opportunity to score. This was their formula, and it gave them a 2-1 series lead, just 2 wins away from the biggest stage in baseball. Game 4 was really, well, you see why they invented the Ghost Runner rule when I tell you about Game 4. Dodgers jumped out to a 1-0 lead in the bottom of the first. They had a bunch of rallies after that, and nobody scored. They even pinch hit Max Muncy for David Freese in the 2nd inning to try and make a matchup move to get some scoring, and that didn't even do the trick. Domingo Santana hit an RBI double in the 5th off Rich Hill to make it a 1-1 game, and that stayed the score until Cody Bellinger hit a walk-off single in the 13th inning. Both teams had chances, but both teams also had fantastic bullpen performances that made pitches when they needed to, and dominated as a whole. The fans probably could have went home quicker though with the ghost runner, as much as you hate that. The Dodgers just happened to be the team to break through with a big hit, and the Brewers now looked at a tie series. So, as of right now, the second most viewed video in Stark Raving Sports history is about Game 5. Lefty Wade Miley was scheduled to start for the Brewers on the mound. He faced Cody Bellinger, walked him, and then right there was pulled for Brandon Woodruff.
What?
Miley was a decoy, meant to bait the Dodgers into hitting a bunch of right-handed hitters in their lineup for Woodruff to come in and face. It was insanely brilliant, and it showed the unbelievable creativity the Brewers were putting in place to try and outsmart their strong opponent. It worked for about half the game. Lorenzo Cain hit an RBI double off Kershaw in the 3rd inning to give the Brewers a 1-0 lead, and Woodruff started to run out of gas in the 5th and 6th innings. A steady dose of contact and singles ball gave the Dodgers 5 runs from the 5th to 7th inning, and that was more than a big enough cushion for the Dodgers to hold. Milwaukee was now 1 loss away from having their season end, but they get to play the final 2 games of this series at home. Wade Miley actually was gonna pitch for a little bit in Game 6. Like, he was a starter for both Games 5 and 6, but 6 was more meant to be his full start, if you catch my drift. It didn't go very well to start, as David Freese hit a leadoff home run to put the Dodgers up 1-0. What the Brewers needed to do was to punch the Dodgers right back in the face in the early innings to show themselves, their fans, and the baseball world that they could do this. The small market, experimental, fun Brewers could take out the big city, name brand establishment Dodgers. And the bullpen turned in 4 2/3 innings of shutout baseball on this night in Milwaukee. A statement win that was as Brewers-y as it got. When this team was able to execute its formula, they knew they could do this. Now, a winner-take-all Game 7 to decide a trip to the World Series.
Might be 2. Arcia. Shaw can't get it out of his glove and still turns it to give his Dodgers the division championship into right center. Back at the wall. It is gone. Yelich is first. Milwaukee takes a first-inning lead. Chacin. That is hammered into right. And a no-doubt home run off the bat of Bellinger to put the Dodgers on top.
Josh Hader came in to pitch in the 3rd inning. That's how weird and aggressive the Brewers were willing to go and try to get a win. And Hader did his job, gutting out 3 shutout innings. Hader wasn't going to come back out for the 6th though, so the Brewers needed to get some clutch offense going, especially down in the game. Cain doubled with 2 outs in the bottom of the 5th, bringing Yelich back up to the plate. The one guy in the world you would want to be up in this spot. And he did his part.
In the air to left, into the gap, it is caught!
Only Chris Taylor did too. Unreal. Yasiel Puig then hit one out of the solar system off Jeremy Jeffress the next inning. The wheels had officially come off. The magic carpet ride had ended. The big brother won, the little brother lost. The Brewers, after all that, were gonna go home. The Dodgers would lose the World Series to the Boston Red Sox in 5 games. But for some reason, to me, someone who isn't even a Brewers fan, I remember that Brewers team more. Going on 5 years after that postseason, I still think about that run the Brewers had, quite regularly. They really almost pulled out a trip to the Fall Classic playing funky experimental bullpen ball, and were truly good enough to justify going as far as they did. They looked to be continuing on in 2019, with Yelich somehow getting better, until a blow to Yelich and the Brewers themselves changed everything.
Gets a win, and the Dodgers advance. They win the wild card series, taking both games from the Milwaukee Brewers.
It's a fly ball to center field. Lorenzo Cain going back at the wall. Freddie Freeman's left the yard and put the Braves on top in the bottom of the eighth.
And Lindor hits one in the air to deep left field. Back goes Yelich to a warning track, looking up. It's out of here! Francisco Lindor with a grand slam to put the Mets in front.
2018 has proven to be the peak of the modern Brewers. Christian Yelich has also never been the same since this knee injury. Both haven't been able to get nearly as close to the glory of the World Series. The Brewers have both been unable to get nearly as close as they did in 2018, and have been victim to crushing season endings ever since. Let this be a lesson to savor the good times, and a hat tip to Brewers fans. You guys are a special bunch, and we hope that making this video did one of the best teams in your history justice. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good rest of your day.